Happy Friday, happy weekend, and of course, condolences to the Havel family, to Dasha Havlova, to Dagmar Havlova, of course, who's the late poet, president, statesman, and author Vaclav Havel, his late second wife, Dasha Dagmar, the actress, the lovely actress, Dasha Havlova, and of course to all the Czech people and Slovak people that are still interested in things that are happening in the Czech Republic. Of course, the Slovaks that are not interested in coming to the Czech Republic to avail themselves of the Czech Republic's public services, kiddie university education, free municipal services, that want to speak Slovak in the city of Prague, beat their chest and declare that they're Slovaks, and then disparage Czechs because Czechs don't want them to speak Slovak in their capital. To those people as well. My name is Adam Daniel Mezei. Oh yes, this is the video blog, and it's the weekend edition, and it's cold, it's Fort Lauderdale on ice, and there's a lot of interesting things to talk about. You know, as Havel is being placed in the ground today, one of the thoughts that I like to think about is the future. You know, of course, a lot of people are thinking about the future. Pundits, commentators, and people in the Czech Republic from all walks of life, of all different stripes and strokes, are thinking a lot about, you know, how things are going to go. My question that I have today for young Czechs and young Slovaks that are not interested in coming to the Czech Republic to take advantage of the Czech people and take advantage of the Czech services that they get for free as part of the Velvet Divorce, whereby they can come to the Czech universities and study for free, and who's actually going to go and want to study in Bratislava in return? Not too many people as far as I'm concerned, except Czechs that are living on the border in places like Zlín or perhaps Ostrava, but let's not go there. Young Czechs are always thinking about things like, how is it going to look in the Czech Republic, in the capital city, Hlavní Město in Prague? How is it going to look for the future? Future being basically, you know, I'm talking again, a decade is a good block of time. How's it going to look this decade? There's nobody that's leading them out of the so-called abyss. Just flat top, Václav Klaus with his constipated look all the time, and his flat top, you know, and his kind of his wonky attitude, his neocon garbage that he likes to spew, and his stick in the mud. And some Czechs think that's great, and some Czechs are proud of that because that's, you know, a way of asserting Czech identity in Europe that wasn't able to be asserted before. Okay, it's one way of looking at it. It's another way of looking at it is like, you also have to understand your place in time in terms of where you're located geographically, and that you're landlocked, you don't have resources necessarily. So what are some of the great things you can offer? Well, not the things that Václav Klaus seems to think that Czechs can offer. How are you going to live your nation? How are you going to live your life? What are you going to do with it? Young Czechs are leaving the Czech Republic for the most part. I think if you look at the numbers, Czechs are leaving. I remember reading an article, I believe it was in, if it wasn't in Hospodářské noviny, or if it perhaps was in Lidové noviny, and I was reading this article about how Czechs were working, young Czechs were working in places like Portugal and Spain, you know, newer markets, basically looking, opportunity seekers, for lack of a better term, not a brain drain necessarily, but opportunity seekers, people that were going to places in other parts of Europe because they wanted to earn money, and rightfully so, because, you know, they want to have a nice life for themselves and their families, their future families, so they're collecting their nuts like squirrels. And they're basically looking to save money so that they could basically go and, you know, like I said, make a nice life for themselves. But there was a statistic, and it was saying that the net flows of population, incoming, outgoing, there were more incoming Czechs back to the Czech Republic as opposed to Czechs leaving the Czech Republic, heading to greener pastures, so-called, in other EU nations. So I don't know what the situation is like now. I suspect it's probably equal, or probably more Czechs leaving the Czech Republic than actually Czechs coming back to the Czech Republic to work because of the economic situation. I think that trend is going to continue. I think, you know, because of the things that are happening politically. I see, what a nation to live in. What a place to live in the world, where you basically constantly say, and you can approach any young Czech person in any hospoda or bar or krčma, or you can approach them in any herna or anywhere, and you can basically ask them, what do you think about the political situation in Česká republika, in the country? And every young Czech will basically tell you, unless they're part of the system, sucked into the vortex of the rotten, mendacious, and perfidious Czech government, and Slovak government for that matter, even worse, they will basically tell you it's a sham, a bunch of crooks, a bunch of low down, no good nicks that are running the show, pulling the levers of power, especially Mr. Constipation Face, Mr. Santa Claus. I think basically everybody is going to tell you that. There's no young Czech person that'll say, I believe in the government, I believe in my nation, I believe in the Czech people, I do, and they will tell you that as well. I believe in Jan Hus, I believe in the Hussite movement, I believe in the resisting spirit of the Czech people, I believe in the fucking fantastic gene code. I mean, you ever walk the streets of Prague, it'll make you doolally, especially if you're an XY chromosomal unit, it'll make you nuts. I mean, so I believe in all of that stuff. I believe in the people, in the joie de vivre, you know, in the as the Italians say, in the dolce far niente, or in Czech you'd say, I'll call it the pohoda, the poho, you know, that kind of thing. I believe in that, but I don't believe in the crooks that are sitting on, you know, the Hradčany side, or what's known as the left bank in the city of Prague. Those guys are a bunch of just, I don't know what you want to call them, former commies, you know, current commies by another name, you know, whatever, radical lefties by a different stroke, you know, emperors in new clothes, dictators in fancy, you know, Gino garb or something, or, you know, Armani suits, whatever you want to call it. But young Czechs will basically tell you that it's a sham, it's a dead letter, it's an empty vessel, it's basically it's a screwball game, and it's a zero-sum game where more for me means jack shit for you, especially young Czechs that are living in small villages around the Czech Republic. For example, like Jihlava, or places like Plzeň, or places like, I said already, Ostrava, or even in the second largest city in the Czech Republic, Brno. They'll also tell you things like, there's no future in the Czech Republic. And that's a sorry, sad state of affairs that Vaclav Havel was never thinking would have been the case when he assumed the mantle of leadership in 1989 on November the 17th, when the Velvet Revolution, the Sametova Revoluce, or as I like to call it, the Smetanova Revoluce, commenced. What kind of nation do you want to live in? Do you want Mr. Flat Top running your show and jerk-offs in his camp running the show? You want the neocons to take over the Czech Republic and make it into their own personal fiefdom? Do you want to be a constant stick in the mud where you travel around to like professional circles in Europe and go, oh no, here are those frickin' Czechs again, coming to like stick it up and, you know, throw a fly in the ointment and monkey up our business? Do you want to be that kind of nation? You know, do you want basically leaders to we call it, in this part of the world, well, not in this country, unfortunately, we're still on the British system, so to speak, but, you know, in the United States we call it representation by population, you know, or taxation without representation, I meant to say, and instead of representation by population. Do you want people to basically run the show in your government, take in money and funds and everything, and basically not represent you properly? Do you want to be afraid of your cops? Do you want to be afraid of all of the goons, the bald-headed, bull-necked, you know, 160 kilogram weighing goons that are driving A-class Mercedes-Benz cars, or, you know, whatever E-class Mercedes-Benz cars that drive down the cobbled streets of the inner city of Prague at 180 kilometers an hour because they don't give a shit about the law, because they don't care about you, because they don't care about your kids, because they don't care about your friends or your babichka who's walking on a walker, who can't afford to spend on healthcare because they're asking for user payments, and this lady doesn't even understand what the process of earning an income is because she never had to do it. Do you want to live in a nation like that, where people just take the law into their own hands with vigilante justice, where basically there's a law for these people, and there's a law for these people, and the law for these people is never going to achieve the law of these people? These motherfuckers over here can travel to the places like the Seychelles, the Maldives, or they can even travel to places like Jižní Afrika, South Africa, and there they can pull all of their mendacious schemes, including the Bahamas, by the way. I forgot to mention that in the process. Do you want to live in a nation like that, where there's one law for the geese and another law for the gander? Not me, and that's why young Czechs are leaving, because they're sick and tired of the people not representing them adequately. And that talent pool is deep, and even the Slovaks who have repented and have realized the boons and the great gains to be found in the holy city of Prague, that they come in and they realize that the Czechs are generous people and that they're willing to look across, you know, look across the divide, look beyond the bare differences, look beyond the gorilla beating the chest type of stuff, the kind of stuff you'd find in Petržalka in Bratislava, and anybody who's from Blava knows exactly what I'm talking about. All of those monkeys that are down there beating their chest and waving flags and, you know, burning things and doing all kinds of stuff like that, those kind of people don't want to live in a place like that anymore, and I can understand why. And good foreigners like myself that loved the city of Prague, of Praha, and that wanted to live in that city and wanted to make that city their own, to take it in like mother's milk, to suck it in and make it their own, and bond with the fibers of that country, that really wanted to become a part and parcel of that nation, to bond firmly like electrons to that country, don't want to live there, because I ain't living in a place where I can spend 5 years and you don't give me health care, and that you don't give me rights, and that you treat me like a stepchild, and that you erect barrier upon barrier upon barrier that are being reinforced by these hairy, showerless gorillas that are taking up the seats of your parliament and senate on the left bank of the Vltava River in the city of Prague in the Czech Republic. I don't want to live in a country like that, and young Czechs that have any moxie, that have psí gole the size of 2 fucking bulls' bollocks, do not want to live in a fucking country where they can't get their just desserts, and they deserve it, because that's some real top A-class Alabama rattlesnake. That is some serious people that you're dealing with there, and most of the people that I talk to are just too damn smart, or as we say in Czech, clever, to want to spend any time in a nation where they are not respected for their contributions. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what Vaclav Havel would have said, had he the power to tell you, straight to your face, in no uncertain terms, not behind closed doors, but in front of this very camera. He would have told you, trach, 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 raz, dva, three. He would have told you this to your face, and he would have said, "You're fucking up my beautiful country. Don't you dare." That's what he would say to you. And that's my wish to you as Havel goes into the ground, and that we forget his memory, where is allowed to tell you how to run your life, and all of his ODS cronies, and all the other motherfucking jackasses that are on the left side of the Vltava River. I have to tell you, shame on you. Shame on you for sending away young Czechs. Shame on you for disparaging the memory of the holy Czech people. That's what I have to tell you. Happy fucking holidays.